These are the richest families that secretly own Texas, and their underground secrets run deeper than the money. We have a family whose pipelines stretch 50,000 miles beneath America, enough to wrap the planet twice. But that's nothing next to the lone banker on this list who waits for the world to crash just so he can buy it on sale. And at the very top sits a family so powerful they make all of them look small. So let's get into the full list. Number 10. The Fertitta family. Here's the thing about Texas money. Most of it is silent. It hides in pipelines, in bank vaults, behind the gates of ranches so big they have their own zip codes. So naturally, we're going to kick this list off with the single loudest billionaire in the entire state. Tillman Fertitta is often called the world's richest restaurateur, but that title honestly sells him short. This man is the sole owner of Fertitta Entertainment, a hospitality empire that basically owns the concept of a night out in America. We're talking the Golden Nugget casinos. We're talking the Landry's empire, which is over 600 locations including Morton's The Steakhouse, Del Frisco's, and yes, even Bubba Gump Shrimp. Oh, and just for fun, he also owns the NBA's Houston Rockets. And quick clarification because people always ask, yes, he's a distant cousin of the Fertitta brothers who ran the UFC, but Tillman's empire is completely separate and entirely self-made. Now, while most billionaires on this list retreat into the shadows, Fertitta does the exact opposite. He starred in his own reality TV show, and he parks his $150 million super yacht, the Boardwalk, in high-traffic harbors on purpose, basically using it as a giant floating billboard for himself. The man is allergic to being ignored. But do not, for 1 second, mistake the flash for foolishness. Fertitta is a financial shark. When the hospitality industry was getting absolutely crushed during the 2020 lockdowns, he moved with brutal efficiency, slashing costs and maneuvering his company through Wall Street like a chess grandmaster. He bought the Rockets for $2.2 billion back in 2017, and critics screamed that he overpaid. Those critics are very quiet now because the team is worth nearly double that today. With a fortune sitting around $9.4 billion, Tillman Fertitta proves that in a state full of silent oilmen, being the loudest guy in the room still pays, as long as you own the casino, the restaurant, and the basketball team. Now, that was the billionaire who demands you look at him. Our next family is the complete opposite. In fact, you might be sitting inside their product right now without even knowing their name. Number 9. The Friedkin family. Let me guess. You think if you drive a Toyota truck, you bought it from Toyota, right? Wrong. If you bought that Tundra or Tacoma anywhere in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, or Oklahoma, you didn't buy it from Japan. You bought it from the Friedkin family, and they have built one of the most genius, invisible monopolies in business history. Here's how it works. Back in 1969, the family patriarch Thomas Friedkin, who was a pilot and a race car driver, made a handshake deal with Toyota right as they were trying to break into the American market. He locked up the exclusive rights to distribute their cars across the entire Gulf States region. And folks, that turned out to be a license to literally print money. Today, his son Dan Friedkin sits on top of Gulf States Toyota, a private kingdom pulling in over $11 billion in annual sales. And the beauty of it is they don't build a single car. They don't take any of that manufacturing risk. They simply control the logistics, the gateway that every vehicle has to pass through to get to the dealership. They take a slice of every single Camry, Tundra, and Tacoma sold in 5 states. It's the perfect business. So what does a man do with that kind of infinite, bottomless cash flow? He builds a second empire for fun. Dan Friedkin runs a major Hollywood studio that produced the acclaimed film Killers of the Flower Moon. He's also an obsessed aviator who owns one of the largest collections of vintage military warbirds on Earth, and he personally flies World War II P-51 Mustangs at air shows. And recently, he bought the legendary Italian soccer club AS Roma, just to add to the collection. With a fortune around $6.4 billion, Dan Friedkin is the ultimate quiet operator. A man who proved the best business in the world isn't making the product. It's owning the gate the product has to walk through. Now, Friedkin quietly controls a gateway. But our next family once quietly pulled off something far more shocking. Four brothers from Texas stepped in and saved the most magical company on the entire planet. Speaking of quietly pulling off the smart play while nobody's paying attention, that's what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 Smart Ring. It tracks your heart rate, your sleep, and your workout straight from your finger. A week on a single charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The part that got us was the price. Under $40, a fraction of what the big-name rings cost, because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Now, back to how a single fortune got multiplied into something staggering. Number 8. The Bass family. When you hear Texas oil money, you probably don't picture the saviors of Mickey Mouse. But that is exactly what the Bass family is. The four Bass brothers, Sid, Ed, Robert, and Lee, are the definition of old money, except they did something almost no heirs ever do. Instead of just lazily living off their inheritance, they grew it into a monster. It started when their great-uncle, a legendary wildcatter, left them a modest pile of oil assets back in 1959. But these brothers were sharp, Yale and Stanford educated, and they brought a level of Wall Street sophistication that Texas oil had never really seen. And in 1984, they pulled off one of the greatest financial moves of the century. The Walt Disney Company was under attack, surrounded by corporate raiders trying to rip it apart and sell it for scraps. The Bass brothers rode in like white knights, bought a massive stake, rescued the entire company, and installed the legendary Michael Eisner as CEO. That single decision launched the Disney Renaissance and turned their millions into billions. Back home, the Bass family doesn't really operate like businessmen. They operate more like feudal lords. They literally bought, bulldozed, and completely rebuilt the downtown core of Fort Worth, creating Sundance Square, a spotless, privately patrolled urban paradise that they essentially own. And if you want a peek at how eccentric this family gets, look at brother Ed Bass, who spent $200 million of his own money building Biosphere 2, a giant sealed-off ecological experiment in the Arizona desert to test if humans could one day live on other planets. So their interests range from cartoon mice to actual planetary colonization. Today, the brothers command a combined family fortune estimated north of $20 billion, and they proved a lesson the rest of Texas took decades to learn. Oil eventually runs dry, but entertainment? That's forever. Now, the Basses bet on fantasy and magic and won big. Our next family bet on something with zero glamour at all, the boring brown cardboard box sitting on your doorstep right now. Number 7. The Perot family. You probably know the name Perot from the history books. Ross Perot Sr. was the data processing pioneer who famously ran for president back in 1992. But while the father made headlines, it was his son, Ross Perot Jr., who quietly built the family's massive modern empire out of all things, dirt. Here's the vision. Perot Jr. looked at 27,000 acres of empty, useless prairie north of Fort Worth, and where everyone else saw cattle pasture, he saw the future skeleton of the entire American economy. He built something called Alliance, Texas, and it is essentially a private city-state built for one single purpose: logistics. This place has its own industrial airport, its own gigantic rail yards, and millions upon millions of square feet of distribution warehouses for the biggest giants on Earth, like Amazon, FedEx, and Facebook. And here's the wild part that affects you directly. If you order a package anywhere in the southern United States, there is a near statistical certainty that it physically passes through Perot family land on its way to you. Think about that level of control. They don't sell you the product. They own the road the product travels on. The family's company, Hillwood, is now one of the biggest real estate developers on the planet. And they aren't stopping. They're currently pioneering a zone to test the next generation of the economy: self-driving autonomous trucks and delivery drones. They didn't just buy cheap land. They built the entire system that makes that land priceless. With a family fortune estimated somewhere between $6 and $8 billion, the Perots learned a lesson that keeps them rich no matter who's in charge. Politicians come and go, but trade routes are forever. Now, the Perots own the roads your goods travel on. But our next man plays an even bigger game. He treats the entire global economy like a single hand of poker. And I mean that literally. Number 6. The Beale family. Andrew Beale is, frankly, an anomaly. He's not an oil man. He's not a rancher. He's a self-taught mathematics genius who looked at the entire United States banking system and decided to treat it like a high-stakes poker table. And he has been cleaning up ever since. His strategy with Beale Bank is genuinely a little terrifying in its simplicity. He is the vulture of the financial world, and he means to be. He buys the loans and the assets that absolutely nobody else wants. So when the savings and loan crisis hit in the 80s, and again when the entire global market collapsed in 2008, while everyone else was panicking and jumping out of windows, Andrew Beale was on a shopping spree. He scooped up distressed assets, crumbling power plants, defaulted mortgages, even grounded airplanes, all for pennies on the dollar. Then he just sits back, waits for the world to recover, and sells it all for a monstrous profit. And get this, he's so disciplined that at one point he reportedly just stopped lending money almost entirely for years, simply because he thought the market had gotten stupid. Then, the second the bubble burst, he swooped back in with billions. The man has ice water in his veins. But here's what makes him a legend. Beale is also a world-class poker player. He once took on an entire team of the best professional poker players on Earth, a group that called themselves the Corporation, in a series of one-on-one matches with millions of dollars on the line. There's literally a famous book written about it. And in his spare time, this man casually invented a complex mathematics problem called the Beale conjecture, and he's offering a $1 million prize to anyone smart enough to solve it. With a fortune around $13 billion, Andrew Beale might just be the smartest money in all of Texas. He's the man who patiently waits for the entire world to panic, so he can buy it on sale. Now, Beale makes his fortune buying what people sell in a panic. Our next family built something so essential that Texans trust them more than they trust their own government. Number 5. The Butt family. In most of the country, you go to the grocery store. In Texas, you don't. You go to H-E-B. And behind that beloved name is the Butt family. Yes, that is genuinely their real last name. And they run perhaps the most worshipped and most secretive dynasty in the entire state. The origin story is pure magic. It all started way back in 1905 when a woman named Florence Butt took out a $60 loan to open a tiny little pantry in Kerrville, Texas. $60. Today, under the leadership of her grandson Charles Butt, that little pantry has become a $40 billion a year monster. But here's the part that experts can't believe. H-E-B didn't just survive in Texas. They beat Walmart and they beat Amazon on their home turf, a feat almost no other regional grocer on Earth has pulled off. How? They got obsessive about being local. They make their own Texas-shaped tortilla chips. They built a fancy gourmet concept called Central Market for the foodies. They tailor every single store to its specific neighborhood. And crucially, the family owns the entire company outright. There are no annoying shareholders, no quarterly earnings calls to perform for Wall Street. This lets them operate with total secrecy and think in terms of decades, not months. But the real reason Texans are fiercely, almost religiously loyal? Disaster. When hurricanes slam the coast, and during the catastrophic 2021 power grid failure that left millions freezing in the dark, H-E-B mobilized convoys of water and food faster and more effectively than the federal government did. Let that sink in. A grocery store out-rescued the feds. That kind of loyalty literally cannot be bought. With a family fortune estimated north of $18 billion, the Butts are the unspoken kings of San Antonio. Because in Texas, if you control the brisket and the bottled water, you control the people. Now, the Butts got rich feeding Texas. Our next man got filthy rich on the one single thing the entire rest of the world keeps swearing it's about to quit. Number 4. The Hildebrand family. While the whole planet is busy talking about green energy and ditching fossil fuels, Jeffrey Hildebrand is doing the exact opposite. He is going all in on oil, and he is making absolute mountains of money doing it. Hildebrand is the founder of Hilcorp, the largest privately owned oil and gas producer in all of America, and his strategy is brilliantly contrarian. He's the cleanup crew. See, when the giant public oil companies like BP or ConocoPhillips want to look good for their investors, they sell off their old, tired, declining oil fields. and Hildebrand is right there, happily buying them up. He then takes those aging wells that everyone wrote off as dead, applies smart technology and a ruthlessly lean operation, and squeezes out every last drop of profit. It's dirty, unglamorous work that Wall Street turns its nose up at. But Hildebrand loves it because by staying private, he answers to absolutely no one. And the way he runs his operation is the stuff of legend. Hildebrand is obsessed with making his people feel like owners. So in 2015, after his company smashed its production goals, he did something almost unheard of. He gave every single employee a $100,000 bonus. And I don't just mean the executives, I mean everyone. The receptionists, the roughnecks out in the field, every single person got $100,000 toward a new car or just took the cash. That right there is how you build an army of fiercely loyal workers who would run through a wall for you. With a personal fortune around $10.2 billion, Jeffrey Hildebrand is basically the real-life modern J.R. Ewing. He is living, breathing proof that oil is nowhere near dead, as long as you have the capital to own the wells outright and the sheer nerve to keep drilling while everyone else is running for the exits. Now, Hildebrand pulls the oil out of the ground, but our next family owns the veins it travels through. And they just might be the quietest billionaires in the entire country. Number 3. The Duncan family. If Hildebrand drills the oil, the Duncan family moves it. And in the world of energy, moving it is where the real, unshakable money lives. The patriarch, Dan Duncan, started with almost nothing, just $10,000 and 2 propane trucks. From that, he built Enterprise Products Partners, a midstream energy titan. Now, midstream sounds boring, but stay with me, because it's the single best business in all of energy. Think about it. The Duncans don't have to take the huge risk of searching for oil and possibly drilling a dry hole. And they don't deal with the cutthroat, low-margin business of selling you gasoline at the pump. They do the one perfect thing in the middle. They own the pipes. They are the toll collectors of the entire energy highway. Today, the family controls over 50,000 miles of pipeline. That is enough pipe to wrap all the way around the planet Earth twice. But here is the most jaw-dropping part of the Duncan story, and it comes down to timing so perfect it's almost unfair. When Dan Duncan passed away in 2010, his family caught the single luckiest break in modern financial history. The year 2010 happened to be the one and only year that the federal estate tax was temporarily wiped out, which meant Dan was able to pass his entire $10 billion empire down to his 4 children completely, totally, 100% tax-free. Today, his daughter Randa Duncan Williams runs the show as chairman, and the 4 siblings together are worth close to $30 billion. And yet, you will never ever see them. No tabloids, no fashion lines, no drama. They simply sit back and quietly collect their tolls on the energy that powers the entire United States. They are the silent, invisible backbone of the American economy. Now, the Duncans are the quietest dynasty in Texas. Our next family is the exact opposite. They are the oldest, loudest, and most scandalous royal family the Lone Star State has ever produced. Number 2, the Hunt family. Before there was Elon Musk, before there was Jeff Bezos, there was H.L. Hunt, and he was the blueprint for the eccentric Texas billionaire. This was a man who reportedly won his very first oil well in a poker game. From there, he got his hands on the East Texas oil field, one of the single largest oil deposits in human history, and built a fortune that was, for a time, the biggest on the entire planet. He was also famously eccentric in his private life, with 3 separate families and 15 children, setting the stage for a century of high drama. And oh, did the drama deliver? In 1980, 2 of H.L.'s sons, Herbert and Bunker, attempted the most audacious financial heist ever conceived. They tried to corner the entire global market for silver. They bought up nearly half of all the silver on Earth, rocketing the price from $6 to $50. But then the government stepped in on a day now infamously known as Silver Thursday, and the whole thing came crashing down. The brothers lost billions and were driven into bankruptcy. But here's how you know you're dealing with true dynastic wealth. Even a multi-billion-dollar bankruptcy wasn't enough to actually wipe the Hunts out. The core family trust survived, and the dynasty rolled on. Today, the family has branched into powerful fiefdoms. Ray Lee Hunt rebuilt the oil empire and constructed the iconic Reunion Tower that defines the Dallas skyline to this day. And then there's the crown jewel. Clark Hunt and his siblings own the Kansas City Chiefs. So while the team may play its games up in Missouri, make no mistake, that ownership is pure Dallas aristocracy. And under Clark, the Chiefs have become the modern dynasty of the NFL, handing the family a whole new kind of cultural power. With a combined fortune estimated at over $24 billion, the Hunts are the closest thing Texas has to actual royalty. They've survived scandals, market crashes, and bitter family feuds, and they're still standing as the gold standard of Lone Star power. But here's the twist. Even a royal family worth $24 billion is about to look small. Because the family sitting at number 1 isn't just the richest in Texas, they are the richest on the entire planet. Number 1. The Musk family. For an entire century, the answer to who is the richest family in Texas was always, without fail, an oil family. But in just the last 5 years, the ground has violently shifted beneath everyone's feet. The richest family in Texas, and in the whole world, is now the Musk family. And Elon Musk didn't just move to Texas. He picked up the entire industrial revolution and moved it with him. Look at the footprint. He relocated Tesla's headquarters to Austin and built Giga Texas, which is one of the largest buildings on planet Earth just by sheer footprint. Then, he took the tiny, sleepy village of Boca Chica down on the coast and transformed it into Starbase, the beating heart of SpaceX, where humanity is literally trying to build its road to Mars. And this isn't a solo act. His brother Kimball sits on the boards of both Tesla and SpaceX, and the entire Musk ecosystem is pulling thousands of engineers and billions in capital into the state. His personal net worth is almost impossible to pin down because it swings so wildly with the stock market, but it generally hovers somewhere between $230 and $300 billion. To put that in perspective, he is worth more than almost every other family on this entire list combined. He's operating on a scale that genuinely makes the legendary old oil barons look tiny. He's even building his own private company town near Austin, reportedly nicknamed Snailbrook, and buying up thousands of acres, treating the state like his personal laboratory for the future of humanity. And that's the real story here. It's a changing of the guard. The old Texas families, the Hunts, the Duncans, the Basses, they all built their staggering fortunes on what they could pull out of the ground. The Musk family is building theirs on what they can launch off the planet entirely. The era of the oil baron is quietly fading into the sunset, and the era of the technocrat king has officially arrived. And these were the 8 richest families in Texas, and when you look at this whole list together, one thing becomes crystal clear. Wealth in Texas was never really about luck. It's about scale. It's about the rare ability to look at a barren, empty patch of dirt and see a whole city, a pipeline, or a launch pad where everyone else just sees dust. From HEB feeding the state, to the Duncans powering it, to Musk trying to launch it off the planet, these families don't just live in Texas. They quietly own its ground, its grid, its supply chains, and now even its skies. That is the real underground secret of the Lone Star State. So I have to ask you, which of these families do you think holds the most actual power? The old guard sitting on the oil, or the new gods building the rockets? Drop your pick down in the comments because we genuinely love hearing what you think. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into hidden wealth, smash that like button, subscribe to Global Status, and we'll see you in the next one.